So I'm John Shepherd and welcome to Track Chat, and I've got Jonathan O'Lory with me and Jacob Paul.
Why 400 metre hurdles? I think I asked myself that quite a few times, especially at the end of a race or the end of a session. But I think, to be honest, I started as a multi-eventer, so I always started. I like to do all the events. As a youngster, I think it's a good idea for most young athletes to start out as multi-eventers, to try every single event. You know, what they like, what they don't like, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And I think my best events were the 400 metres and the sprint hurdles, so I sort of just put them both together, and yeah, that was what worked for me. I've always said to myself I'd rather focus on one event rather than training across the board for all 10 events, which would have been what I would build up to in a decathlon. So yeah, I'm just happy that I found that.
You get a lot of 4 hurdlers who can do the multi-events, because Ashton Neaton was good, always good at the 4 hurdles. I think Seb Rogers, didn't he come from the...
Yes, so Seb came from the decathlon as well, I believe, the multi-events. So yeah, it's one of those events where really you've got to be quite technically gifted at the same time. So obviously in a decathlon, where every event is fairly technical, gives you a good sort of grounds for entering into the 400 hurdles then, when really you've got to be fairly technical going over the hurdles, obviously, and hurdling under fatigue as well.
On that subject, because others were going to talk too much about the decathlon, we want to obviously talk about the 4 hurdles. But the 400 metre runner's strength, how tough is it?
To be honest, comparing a 400 metres to a 400 metre hurdles, I feel like I'm always more, out of breath, tired, on the floor, after a 400 metre flat, because in a 400 metre flat you're gun to finish. 400 hurdles allows the race to be broken up into 10 different stages, and you've got to be able to hurdle 10, so you can't go off like a rocket and try and finish like you can in a 400 in a way, because you've got to be able to hurdle the last hurdle, and if you stutter into it or don't take it very well, that's going to cost you a lot of time at the end. Whereas in a 400, obviously in the last 50, you're not going to worry about jumping over another barrier. It's just a case of getting to that line.
So obviously I'm a triple jumper, and I have a set approach. This year it was 17 steps to the board. In the 4 hurdles you have a stride pattern.
That's right.
Because I've heard so many different athletes have different stride patterns. They go, 15 to hurdle 7 and then change. What's your
stride pattern, like in long jump, is obviously probably the most important aspect of the event. I want to get a consistency in my stride pattern, and attacking each hurdle from the right position. As in long jump, triple jump, you want to take off, as close to that board as you possibly can, to get the furthest distance. So the stride pattern I do is 14 strides to hurdle 7, and then I do 15s from 7 to the finish. Last year I was trying to do 13 strides. I feel like 13 strides is sort of like that magical number. I don't know whether in triple jump there's a number like 17.
Not so much.
No.
Was it Ed Moses who ran 13 strides all the way around?
That's right, yeah. So 13 strides is sort of that magical number. A lot of people think that the less strides you do, the faster you're going to run, and that's certainly what I had in my head as well. So I was trying to make 13 strides to hurdle 5 and then finish on 14 strides, whereas I found that I was maybe getting to hurdle 5, so halfway around the race quicker, I was finishing a lot slower. So now if I do my 14 strides from the start of the race, I'm going to get to hurdle 5 maybe half a second slower, but I'm going to finish the second half of the race a whole second quicker, which averaging out is going to my finishing time is going to be half a second quicker at the end. So obviously that's more beneficial for me, and I've got to the point now in training this year that my 14 strides to hurdle 5, so halfway through the race, is actually quicker than my 13 strides was anyway.
Does that mean you've got to hurdle off both legs then?
Yeah, that's right.
Do you get in the wrong position? I always notice, is it an advantage to have the inside leg coming around that bend as opposed to the outside leg? Yeah,
definitely. So I would alternate legs each hurdle if I'm doing 14 strides.
Okay.
And I try to make it so that my first hurdle I'm hurdling off my left leg, which allows me to sort of lean into the bend rather than sort of leaning out. if you're leaning out, you're going to bring your trail leg through like slightly awkwardly, and it's just not very comfortable or efficient going over the hurdles. So yeah, definitely with left leg lead, it's better around the bend. Then on the straight, yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. And then on the second bend, there's a couple of hurdles to negotiate. So I think sometimes I have to do one of the hurdles on the bend maybe with my right leg. But I think by then you're pretty fatigued, so it's not quite as crucial, yeah. Whereas on the first hurdle, when you're travelling at quite a lot of speed, definitely I prefer to hurdle with my left leg. It allows me to just attack the hurdle a lot better. So. Yeah.
Does anything ever go wrong? Because with the jumps, I mean, we can get the approach completely wrong, but we have 5 more attempts or 2 more. So does anything ever go wrong that you have to suddenly think on your feet? Or
yeah, definitely. I mean, you could turn up to a race. You've probably got the same with jumping, and you've got a -5 headwind down the back straight, and you sort of think to yourself, right, well, am I going to make my 13 strides now? So really, turning up to each race, I've got to have not just one stride pattern ready in my head, but maybe 2 or 3, so I can, depending on the weather, if that's going to affect my race, then I've got another stride pattern that I can rely on.
That's an interesting point, because obviously being a triple jump, long jumper, you've got run-throughs to practice. You can't run a 400 metre hurdle race in warm-up. So how on earth do you gauge the wind?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just experience more than anything from having done it for so many years now. I've been fairly fortunate anyway that I'm fairly good at judging my hurdles, so I can tell if I go over one hurdle that I know and I'm like stretching for it. So say I'm stretching for hurdle 6, then I may make the adjustment early, so that then I don't have to stutter into hurdle 7 or make the adjustment closer to the hurdle, because that's when you're going to stutter, lose a lot of momentum.
So in the jumps, obviously you're going person after person, so you can respond to someone's performance. And in a race, you see in the 800 someone goes up hard. Does that happen in the full hurdles, and does that affect your race?
Yeah, definitely. I think genuinely you tend to go with the pace of the race. So say there's someone who's a lot faster than you in the lane outside of you, it definitely helps in terms of using them as a marker. I think I've been guilty a few times in the past of having one eye on my hurdles, one eye on the person outside of me, which isn't necessarily the best thing to do. They say you should have your blinkers on and run your own race, which is true. But I think it definitely helps if the rest of the field is really going for it at the start, because it helps push you along, and especially at the finish as well, when you're chasing someone, you're a lot likely to drive harder, run faster than or if you're in a battle with someone, you're neck and neck, then it sort of spurs you on. And as competitive as I am, or I like to think I am, it definitely helps me finish a race. Whereas if you're in front, then tendency is to not push quite as hard, maybe ease down a little bit, but yeah, sometimes it can play against your favour. So my last race this season was at the World University Games, and I think I was definitely guilty there of watching the person in the lane outside of me, which sort of took my focus off my race slightly, which I think probably had an adverse effect on my finishing time.
How did you do in that?
So in the World University Games, I came 3rd in my semi-final. I finished 9th overall, so I was 1 place away from making the final, which was frustrating, but I went into the event ranked, I think 10th or 11th, so to finish 9th, I've done slightly better than that, so I can't complain really.
And you'd had a long season, because you went to the Euro Under-23s as well?
That's right, yeah. So at the Euro Under-23s, I finished 5th.
What's your time?
So my time there, around 49.8 in the semi-final, and 49.9 in the final. So yeah, it's quite tough, going through the rounds, doing 400 hurdles on consecutive days. So there's not a long period to rest between heat, semis and final.
So this year was the first time you dipped under 50 seconds, if I remember.
That's right.
Yeah. And you were talking to us earlier about this being a bit of a breakthrough season for you. What do you put that down to?
I think, to be honest, probably my mental attitude towards the event and training, I think, has been the biggest factor, helping me towards running that sub 50 seconds. And also I think because I've graduated from university in 2016, my training then, after graduating from 2016 into the 2017 season, I think I've not had, the pressures of university, student life, anything like that, which could be factors affecting performance. So it's allowed me really just to focus on my training, and I think that's really what's benefited me most. And also training back at home, training with my normal coach, Marina Armstrong, and my training group, and I think that's something that's really helped me.
Yeah, we were going to ask you about that, the training group. Got a lot of high-profile 400-metre hurdlers in it. Does that obviously inspire you? Well, tell us who's in your group.
Yeah, so we've got a girl called Shona Richards who has been competing for Great Britain for a few years now, gone through the junior ranks, has done pretty well. She's actually the British record holder for 400-metre hurdles, female under 20 age group in Britain, and has won world junior medals, so she's got good experience on the international stage. Another guy I trained with called Chris McAllister, so he made the British Championships final this year, so he's had a pretty good season, and he's ran some fast times as well, so he's up there. And it's good to train with a group where everyone's striving towards that same goal. Everyone's at that sort of trying to break through into that senior international level. So that helps, motivate everyone, and we're working towards a goal together. So,
little anecdote. We heard that Marina makes you eat certain foods all the time.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, she sends us diet plans, which we try to stick to.
Can you tell us whether you like the food or not?
Yeah, I mean, they're all right. Sometimes some of those things are quite extravagant. I remember one time she said one of the meals she wanted us to have was a steak with Himalayan salt, something like that. So it was very specific. Yeah. Not quite sure what the benefit of the Himalayan salt was, but I'm sure she's got her reason. Well, I mean, I never got the Himalayan salt. I just used the normal salt. So
altitude salt.
Yeah, maybe. But so she's pretty good. Like, she keeps on top of the trends and the diets and stuff. So
so do you? A lot of athletes I know don't follow a healthy diet. Do you think that as a whole you do?
Well, I mean, it's something I've been criticised for myself in the past. I like to think I have a fairly healthy diet. I think as well as, just following a strict healthy diet, you've got to eat foods that you like and enjoy at the same time. If someone tells me, eggs are really good for you, you need to be eating eggs before you race, before you train, I could go and eat eggs before I run, before I train. I may not like eggs. I may react badly to them, and that's going to affect my performance negatively, isn't it? Yeah. So, there's a lot of different variations that you can look at within your diet. But I think, to be honest, everyone's different, and whatever works for you. If you find something that works for you, then I don't think somebody else can tell you different. No.
Well, that's a very good point. You've got to experiment in training. You can't do it before a race as well.
No, definitely.
Because you need time as well to find out how that food's digested and whether it actually assists you.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was at university, I'll admit I didn't have the best diet. Living on my own, I had that freedom. I think the closest thing I got to a vegetable was an onion ring. So yeah, it probably wasn't the best diet I had, but it's something I've tried to work on. Since then, and my diet's definitely improved, and I think my performance has probably improved because of that.
I mean, a lot of parents will ask me as a coach, what should they eat? What should the son and daughter eat before a competition? The 400 hurdler, you don't want too much in your stomach, I guess.
No.
I mean, what would you eat in the last hour and a half towards a race?
So, I mean, the last hour and a half, not a lot. I try to eat some good sort of carbohydrates, maybe 2 or 3 hours before I race, so that would be about an hour and a half before I start warming up, because that's then going to see me through to after the race. The last thing I want is to be hungry on the start line. I think, to be honest, I start my sort of pre-race eating ritual, if you like, the day before the race. So the night before a race, I'll have like a big pasta or something which involves a lot of carbs and some protein, obviously, as well, which I think if it may not actually benefit me, but if mentally it makes me feel more comfortable on the start line, then I think it's going to have a positive effect on my performance. When I was younger, so I probably didn't think so much about my diet. I was in Belgium, and I think we were in Bruges, and trying to find somewhere to eat, and everywhere was pretty expensive. And I was only young, so I didn't want to go spending a lot of money on healthy food. So me and my mate, we actually went to the kebab shop and just got a little burger each. And I ran a PB the next day. So that year I was actually trying to break 52 seconds, and I'd ran I think 52:03. I'd run a few low 52-second runs, and this was the time I finally broke 52, and I ran a 51.5. So I broke it by half a second. Yeah, probably not the best thing to do.
So you graduated from university in 2016, and now you're professional track and field. How do you fund that? I mean, graduating from uni, most students get into a city job. For an athlete, it's probably not the best thing. How do you go about managing that?
Yeah, so I mean, really, I found that after you've graduated from university, those really are your make or break years. That's what I'm sort of experiencing a bit at the moment. So throughout school, throughout university, you're quite well supported, quite well funded, either by your parents, or there's quite a few funding schemes going around. Futures program, but they're more targeted for people that are still in full-time education. So once you come outside of that, it is a bit like what do I do next? Do I go into the working world? Obviously, I've got to earn a living for myself, so if I can't do that for athletics, I'm going to have to find another source to do that. But obviously my passion is athletics. That's what I want to take long term. So to be honest, I've taken a bit of a risk this year myself. So I've not taken in loads of funding, and in terms of working, I've not done loads of work to support myself financially.
What is your work? What do you do?
So but what I do is I do part-time fitness instructing and personal training, which I find that is not quite as many hours, but it's good sort of pay per hour.